Hello, my name is India. I use she, they pronouns. I work with middle schoolers. I work on performance projects sometimes, and sometimes I work at a bookstore. And today I want to tell you about the books that I'm planning on reading for the Bloomin Readathon that is being run in November by Allison Pages and Kirsty. I'm really excited about this readathon, because my reading this year has been less than satisfactory. I haven't been reading as much as I typically do by a long shot, and so I hope that participating in a readathon will help me either get back on track or just help me read more books. And also November is my birthday month, so it kind of feels like a little gift to myself of prioritizing reading. Also, on top of that, I do work at a school. November is lovingly called No School November. We've got a lot of days off, so there's a lot of time that I can devote just to reading, which is nice. So I'm going to talk to you about the books that I want to read. I tried filming this before, and I did it in a way that didn't make a lot of sense because I really like the act of planning out and figuring out how can I meet all of these challenges with only one book per challenge. And I just realized I can do that for myself, but there's no need for me to share with you books that meet challenges that I'm definitely not going to read. So this is my list of books that kind of fit under my category of this is semi-realistic while still being challenging. I have every challenge covered in the least amount of books. And there are multiple ways that I can just get a bingo, which is kind of I want to at least get a bingo. It would be cool if I could read all of these books, but again, with my tendencies this past year, I don't know how realistic that is. Eleanor has decided to make her appearance. Hello! So I think what I'm going to do is just follow the bingo board and go across each of the rows and tell you about the books as I get to them and briefly mention them if it's a book that has come up already. So starting with row 1, we have the B column, which is to read a book on your shelf that has a lot of buzz or is really popular. So I've chosen a book that is the newest release on my shelf that's really popular, that I picked up because I was interested in it before it came out, and now it's receiving a lot of buzz, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is a dark academia, alternate history book about a college of translation at Oxford University. And I'm really interested in this. This is a signed copy that I picked up while I was working at the bookstore, so that's fun. This is definitely a little intimidating because it is the largest book, so I might look into getting the audiobook, but I also, when I started reading this, the first chapter was really intrigued. Next is the Cloud Space. So a book that you assume will make you emotional. I have quite a few books that I think might make me emotional. As much as possible, I tried to pick from my TBR of books that I hope will make me feel a little happier, or I hope won't make me feel super, super low. But I still have books that I think either might make me sad or might make me really happy. So I'm just gonna mention those and not go into too much detail because they come up later. Mostly, I think either The Book of Delights by Ross Gay or The Waves by Virginia Woolf are gonna check off this box. I think The Book of Delights I anticipate that this will make me really hopeful or reflective and happy, contented, happy. And I think The Waves is gonna make me sad because I tend to have a pretty strong reaction to any Virginia Woolf book that I read. She's one of my favorite authors. This is one of the last books of hers that I have, and I just think it's gonna make me maybe a little sad. The sun spot is to pick a book that is happy, and I have The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. This is a book I picked up because I was looking for like comforting reads, and this came up. It's about a group of women who kind of vacation in a castle in Italy. But yeah, it says it's a recipe for happiness, a comedy of absolutely flawless mirth. I think this will make me really happy. I also have a couple more books that I think are going to leave me feeling positive. The moon space is to read a book that takes place outside of the country that you're from. So I'm from the US, and I have quite a few books that take place outside of the US, but specifically I'd like to read The Black Tulip by Alexander Dumas. This is about a man whose father is a very like respectable tulip farmer or like tulip grower, and he gets assassinated. So yeah. Oh, did I say this was set in France? This is set in Holland. This is set in Holland. I also just want to read more of Dumas because he seems like an interesting like character in literary history, and I want to be more familiar with his works. Last on this row is the tree space, which is to read a non-fiction. I have two non-fiction books, so I'm going to just mention them here. I have As Long as Grass Grows, and I have Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. But I'm going to talk about this mostly. As Long as Grass Grows, The Indigenous Fight for Environmental Justice from Colonization to Standing Rock by Dina Gillow Whitaker is a book about Indigenous activism and Indigenous relationship to Earth, especially as it plays into climate justice and capitalist acts against the Earth. So this is also the Pocket Pages book club for Allison Page's Patreon book club, or Patreon, her book club, which I might join. I don't know, but I thought I have this on my shelf, I might as well read it, and yeah, I'm excited. Row 2 starts with the daffodil space, which is read a book about friendship, and my main pick for that is The Waves by Virginia Woolf, because this opens with 6 friends on the beach, or it follows 6 friends as they kind of grow up. So it's about friendship. We then have the cacti space, which is to read a non-needy book. So either a short book or an anthology. So I picked a short story collection. This is The Melancholy of Anatomy by Shelley Jackson, and it's just a collection of anthologies that is thinking about the gross, grotesque, beautifulness of our bodies. And I'm really excited about this. My plan is to read a story a day, or a story a week, or a couple stories a week, and just take it kind of slow. Next, we have Variegated, which is the rare book or fewer ratings online. And I'm using the same book for this. This is a book that I picked up in a pretty small bookstore, not knowing much about it, just kind of interested by the spine, which is pretty cool. I mean, we've got eyes, and because of the title, but I haven't heard about it other than that. Next is the propagation space, which is to read a book that has an adaptation. And for this, I have Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later, but I also might read Lady Chatterley's Lover. That was a book that I initially had on my longer list, but cut down because this is the shortest amount of books. But that has an adaptation and also fits with some of my other some of the other challenges. So I could read that. Then we have the spider space, which is just to read a dark book and babble. It seems dark. It's dark academia. Again, Allie from Allison's Pages spoke about this and used the same reasoning. So I am just copying her. Okay, row 3 starts with the lotus space, which is to read a book featuring disability. I have Hot Milk by Deborah Levy. This is a book that follows 2 women, I believe a mother and a daughter, who are going to the Spanish coast. And the mother, I believe, is experiencing symptoms, experiencing pain that doctors aren't able to really figure out and aren't able to really help her with. So this does follow a woman who is experiencing some kind of physical disability, whether that is more like temporary or long term. I don't know. Like, I don't know how long she's been experiencing these symptoms, how long this has been part of her life, but this seems to fit. And then the next space is the succulent space, which is to read a book that makes you hot. This was one that initially I wanted to... initially wanted to read Lady Chatterley's Lover, because it's about lovers. But also Hot Milk has hot in the title, so I'm counting that. Then the Lily space. Again, I'm going to briefly mention Cold Comfort Farm. This opens with the death of the main character's parents and kind of follows her as she tries to figure out what to do with her life. The Lily space is to read a book that covers grief or death. And then the snail space is to read a slow burn. So Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard is a book about Annie Dillard that she wrote while she was staying in a cabin, kind of like isolated in the middle of the woods, and taking note on what she was experiencing, what she was noticing. So like, I know there is like one of the most memorable sections in here is about a moth. I read this when I was in 8th grade, and it went over my head, as a lot of the stuff that I read in 8th grade did. So I'd like to reread this, but it's definitely a slow burn. It was, whoops. It was one of those books that took me months to read. So yeah, hopefully it's not gonna take me months to read this time. Row 4 is the water row, a book or read from an author you've been thirsty to read more of. This just seems appropriate. The waves, we've got water. I am nearing the end of my Virginia Woolf books that I have left to read, which is kind of scary, but I have been wanting to get to this one for a while. Then the fertilizer space, a book that will nourish your soul. I have the Book of Delights by Ross Gay. I already mentioned this, but this is a collection of poems, meditations, essays about delight, what's delightful in the world, what it means to be delighted, what it is like to live. So I think this is really gonna be nourishing for me. I think I need to read it. No, you're not going up there. She's being mischievous. She's being very mischievous. Then the Green Carnation space, read a book with LGBTQ plus themes or from an LGBTQ plus author. I have a couple books. I've got 2 books. I have The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo, and I have Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. Anna Marie McLemore is an author I've been wanting to read from for a long time, and this is definitely the first book that I heard from them that I was curious about. This is about a family who is cursed with, like, if they fall in love with someone, that person disappears. And it's a lot about family. It's a lot about, like, love and stuff. It's about love and stuff. But yeah, I would like to read this. And then the next space is the tulip space, which is to read a book that features love or that you predict you will love. So this definitely has love at the center of it. Not necessarily in like a romance way, but in the sense of characters' feelings and their love that they experience is quite pivotal probably in this book. Then the Ladybug space is a book that is cute on the outside but might ruin your life. Again, The Waves. So you can probably tell I'm definitely going to be reading The Waves because this book is going to check off so many boxes. Same with Cold Comfort Farm. I think this book's going to make me sad and potentially ruin me. Not because I think anything like drastic is going to happen, but just because of my history with reading Virginia Woolf and how I react to her books. I think this is gonna be a lot, maybe, perhaps. And lastly, our last row, we have the root space, which is to return to your roots, to reread a book. I'll be rereading Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. This was one of those books that like blew my mind, and I want to get back to that. I liked reading it as a writer. I was writing a lot more when I was reading this, and so it really like was inspiring me in how I was writing about nature, and also just felt like a really important book, even though I don't know why. Then we have the Earth space, which is to read a book that was published before 1990. I have a lot of books that can cover this. I've got Cold Comfort Farm, The Waves, The Black Tulip. This one's gonna be covered no matter what. I just have a lot of books on this TBR that are going to work. What are you doing? No. Oh boy. She's really out here. Okay. The Ivy space is to read a book that's like the highest book on your TBR. I don't have an easy way to figure out what the highest rated book on my TBR is. I don't really use Goodreads anymore. It's not really very accurate then. So, my estimate is that The Empress of Salt and Fortune would be up there, probably also maybe with Babel, but since it is newer, it may not have the most ratings. This follows someone in royalty or some like highly important person and a handmaiden that is telling them stories. I'm really excited. It's also short. This is the shortest book, so I hope that I get to it just based on that alone. Then the Dandelion space, a book that's been on your shelf for ages and that you can't seem to get rid of. There are other books that would probably fit this better, but I'm going with Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. This is a book that's been on my TBR for ages, like since middle school. And I read the first couple of chapters a couple months ago and really, really liked them. This is about a young woman whose parents die, and she leans on the support of her extended family, who she doesn't know. And this is a satire about novels written in the turn of the century about women or about people who are like suddenly in need of support and who've like just been taken care of their whole life. So yeah, it's been on my shelves. I'd like to get to it. I'd like to read it. I think I'm gonna like it. Lastly, The Mole. face is to read a book with a strong antagonist. So I'm going with The Black Tulip because, again, this features a father who's been assassinated, and then the son is like kind of having to deal with that and steps into all this like political stuff, and that seems like a strong antagonist, you know, an assassin. So I'm gonna go with this. Thank you so much for watching. These are the books that I'm looking forward to reading in November. I hope to vlog. I hope to be consistent about it, or do it in a way that makes it a little easier for me to actually upload what I film. But yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you another time.